And so let's go through just a conversation about some MVPs that made it big and just look at what it was that made them big. So here we've got Amazon. Who wants to take a stab at what they think Amazon's MVP was?
They started that book distribution.
Right, but it's the distribution, you're onto it. It's basically the fact that they had their own distribution warehouses. You can order online because there's a lot of other book ordering portals, but the fact that you'll get that book because they have their own distribution centers. That's their MVP. That's how they differentiated themselves from other companies. They were able to expand into so many other products using that same distribution model. But it's a trusted distribution system because usually, like probably 99.99%, you're always going to get your product. So it started out with that you were always going to get your book, and they always had a good selection of them. But it was really the shipping and the fact that they had the direct ship from their own warehouses.
And that they undercut everybody by $3 or whatever.
Right, yeah.
What was the price thing?
Yeah, and those were other things that they added on to it as well, but that was the key thing.
They didn't undercut them together. There were some god-awful expensive technical books on there.
Oh, in technical books, perhaps. But the question was, did you have a bookstore nearby at which you could get it? So on those books they could, but on commodity books, they had to undercut the Barnes and Nobles and all that, and that's where they created trouble for them.
But yeah, but then they found their blue ocean. Also the online books, that like a lot of the bookstores too, if they weren't doing things in a certain way, became extinct. The same thing with movies and Netflix. Actually, I don't have Netflix on here, but Netflix is another example. They disrupted the movie industry, right? Because they
killed Blockbuster.
Yeah, right, exactly. In some cases, it actually kills the other company. Tesla. What's Tesla's MVP?
Wasn't the MVP an electric car that doesn't suck?
Something like that.
On the bright side, Tesla came up with their minimally viable product. They put it on the street.
That's right.
They tested
It was bare bones, yeah.
the bare bone, and now they have perfected it.
Right.
Well, close to perfect.
They kept at it. He wanted to get it out with just the
Exactly.
idea, and he was very passionate about
Right.
the environment and about electric
Right.
vehicles and all of that, which goes into his passion for all his other things that he's doing in terms of the environment and conservation and all that. But he wanted it out so quickly, to your point, that he just brought out the bare bones model so that people would start seeing it and feeling it and tasting it, and then iterate on it.
Right.
That's how they iterated on the product too.
Let's look at their effect in the entire market. They truly disrupted the auto industry in a sense that they pushed other manufacturers to follow through providing some sort of electric option. That is a real disruption of a huge market.
Yeah.
We're talking of trillions of dollars of market. Auto industry got disrupted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, good point. Salesforce. What was Salesforce's MVP?
It's out in the cloud.
The cloud, and then what else?
You rent it, you don't have to buy it.
Yeah, the cloud, and then
Yeah.
CRM.
CRM that you rent, you don't have to buy, you don't have to get the hardware, you don't have to put all this on-prem stuff together.
And basically, from that MVP, now they've spun off all these other products, but they still always go back to their core product of CRM, right? But they've got everything under the sun now, and then now they even have a huge tower in downtown San Francisco, right? And all kinds of other things. But they started with that MVP, the cloud, the CRM, being able to build your own app.
CRM existed, but they made it so that more people could get into it.
Exactly.
A lot more accessibly.
Just the way that they delivered it and the way that it was marketed and the dashboard and everything like that became very distinctive in terms of that. So that's Salesforce. Facebook was really about, right, interactions and building relationships. Their MVP is like a relationship tool in terms of being able to create elite relationships in a sense, because they started out with like the Ivy League schools and all of that, but it was really about getting friends, which is a relationship, and then the types of friends, and then knowing somebody's status, if they're single, if they're married, or whatever. But it's still a relationship building in terms of now that it's mega, being used for advertising, Facebook Live, where companies are going up and doing videos and all of that, and stars are doing things and have entire pages, and so they're doing a lot more with that, but it's really about relationships. Then MVPs that made it into product lines. So Tesla, so again, we talked about it, David. It started out with a very simple model, then there was iterations just on the Model S and many, many iterations, changes of price and adjustments now that they're making it so it's more affordable to sort of the middle of the road. Not everybody has $100,000 for a Tesla, so they've made more affordable ones. And then they also have now the Model X, which are the SUVs, right, that have the hatches and all that. And they even have like a sports car, which I'll have to get the picture of that one, but I did see the video for that, and I think that's like about $250,000 to start with. But at any rate, the idea started and then it went into product lines, and the reason for that was to find areas that are more attractive based on how much money you make and for different lines and to expand out. So for example, the Model S was just too expensive for everybody, so now they went into a more mainstream model that's like $30,000, and they're really pushing to try to sell more of those right now. As we were talking, I think some people were bringing that up. There was bookstores before Amazon, right? There was online bookstores, so Amazon was not the first one. Again, we talked about how it was really having their own warehouse and the trust factor that they built up. And then electric cars, there were other electric cars before Tesla, so they were not the first ones to create the electric cars. There were other CRM tools before Salesforce, there was Siebel, a bunch of other ones, and social media sites before Facebook. But they had such a way of putting their recipe together, and the way that they offered it, and the way it was marketed, that became their secret sauce, that they became wildly successful. So that's always the question, that it's not necessarily that you're creating the most innovative product, because somebody else may have already done that, but it's really what are all the other elements that you put into place that's really going to make it take off and find your blue ocean. Innovation accounting. Basically, in order to really measure your progress and look at things in the smaller intervals, get into that measure cycle of the build, measure, learn, you can use innovation accounting. And it is a pretty hot area right now. Again, at the Stanford program that I took, the LEAD program, they do get into a whole course on it. But rather than waiting 5 years, say you sink all these costs into a company, and the first year you're going to be like in the red. But the whole purpose, as we saw earlier, is that you want to start to realize value as soon as possible. You want to start seeing the money, show me the money from day one of when you start creating this product. So what are the smaller increments that you can actually measure, and how can you break up the operational costs so that they can be spread out over a number of years rather than realizing them all up front and being in the red for the first 2 years. You're looking at ways to make money. And one example I can think of, it's interesting enough, I live up near the wine country, I live in Marin. Roche Winery just moved, and they weren't going to produce grapes for like 3 or 4 years, but they moved the winery. But what they started doing is renting out the winery. They made it into an Airbnb, and they were able to actually start getting revenue in that way until the grapes started producing. So when you think about it, I mean, the analogy almost fits, that you can start to find other ways to, maybe there's a way with microservices, or maybe there's a way with services or something like that, where you can actually ramp up quickly and start to actually make money maybe before your main product's launched. Or with the Tesla, sending that bare bones out, even though it's not really done, but you're starting to see something and see some money come in. So if you can figure out some ways to see money come in other ways before your main product goes out, then that's an innovative way that you can start to manage your business and start to see value there. How is this all done? One way that you can start mapping out ideas and things is using the Lean Canvas. So whenever I go to any kind of a Lean startup type of a thing or a talk, they always use the Lean Canvas to start, and especially if you're starting out with an initiative or a project. So what you want to do with the Lean Canvas is start out with a problem. So what are the top 3 problems you're trying to solve? So again, you can use this going into when you're even prioritizing your backlog in Agile, right, for your epics. If you first map out your top 3 problems, then when you stack rank it and choose the first problem you want to solve, you rearrange your epics based on what the problem was. Then you can go into the solutions. Now what are the top 3 features that you want to see? And then again, transcribing that into Agile, then that's how you do the feature development in terms of which things do you want to see first, and then you would, again, rearrange your epics and your backlog and then create the stories based on what you've decided here. The next important thing is always the key metrics that you want to measure. What is going to really show the value for you first, right, in terms of the problem that you're solving? So usually you would start with like 3 to 5. I wouldn't go more than that, because if you go over that, then it'll be watered down, so it won't be relevant. So usually like the top 3 of things that you might want to see. And maybe there's things like time to value, like how long does it take for you to see the value in the product, or what's the cost of the value, or things like that. Or if you're doing a customer-based one, maybe your CSAT or things like that. So what are your higher level ones that you're looking at? And then your unique value proposition. So this is your elevator pitch, and this is really your blue ocean there. What is it that is that unique value proposition that you think is really going to take it home for your company. And then as you create everything, any kind of a feature or any kind of a product or service, you're always going back to really what your blue ocean is and what your unique value proposition. And again, it can filter to your products, it can filter to the way you do business, into a lot of things. And we see with the really successful companies like Southwest, for example, where it's so customer-centric and love airline that everything they do internally and externally is focused on not only their customers being super satisfied, but their employees being satisfied. What are the unfair advantages? It can't be easily copied or bought. What is it that's going to make you different from other people? So we talked about CRM, other CRM besides Salesforce, but what was their advantage, right? So if you think about what that could be that might differentiate you from other competitors, then you can really go in and decide what you might want to do. And then what are your channels? What are the paths to the different customers that you can execute this? For example, for a web company, you might do omni-channel, where you have a lot of different kinds of channels on your web that you can switch around from. And then who are your target customers? So you might want to start with a smaller segment of customers and test it out on them first, and then do the build, measure, learn based on that smaller segment, and then go through and branch it out to a larger segment. In the case of Facebook, where they started out with a few small universities, the elite universities. And then you've got your cost structures, what are your acquisitions costs, your distributions, etc. And then your revenue streams, like how will you realize revenue? What are your revenue models, the value, the revenue, the gross margin, and that would tie into the innovation accounting. And then you notice everything on the left is product, so it relates to product, what you're building, versus the market in terms of the value that you're realizing. Have any of you used it at all?
I have used not just for projects small to mid-size to large scale, I have used it in marketing as well.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I mean, you can use it for a lot of stuff. It's a
yeah.
great tool. Yeah, no, I use it for a lot of the. I use it for a lot of the classes I teach too.
Yes.
When students are given their project at the beginning,
Yes.
like what do they have to do, and then I just let them use it to
Right.
map it out, even in a traditional project management class.
Right. When I was writing that proposal, I used the Lean Canvas for teaching and what's the value proposition of Scrum at scale as a class to be taught at UCSC session.
Okay, good.